Welcome to the Just Word Podcast. I'm Pat Bolland. The Just Word Podcast is brought to you by Justwealth, investing the way it should be, just for you. Steve Knifton had a history in the news business, and then he moved into education, smartphone filmmaking, if you can imagine, as well as mobile journalism. And he's an old buddy of mine. He's coming up. Steve, great to see you again.
Hi, Pat. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
You know, when I heard you went into education, I said, okay, smartphone filmmaking and mobile journalism. So tell me, what are those first off, and then we'll go from there.
Smartphone filmmaking is taking your smartphone and adding a little bit of software, an app called Filmic Pro, as a matter of fact, although there's other apps like it, that essentially take your onboard smartphone camera and elevate it up to the level of a professional film camera, of a DSLR. So you can exact fantastic imagery out of it, cinematic imagery out of it.
But the quality that you get out of the smartphone can be increased that much?
Yeah, it can be. You can shoot in, not to get overly technical, but you can shoot in 10-bit color. You can shoot in this enhanced video space, and you can get broadcast quality, brand, commercial level content quality out of the smartphone. You really can. You don't treat it like a point and shoot. I mean, it's like any endeavor. You have to work at it a little bit and, have some creative ideas and plan it, but it's entirely possible. It's not difficult at all to learn. So I was teaching video studies, video production. As you just said, I migrated from TV and working in television, as you well know, as a producer, you have to sort of lead the way by motivating and influencing people that work for you. So I was told occasionally that you'd make a good teacher. So I followed them up on it. So I was teaching general video production. And at the end of the semester in video production, I would tack on a little 20-minute, addendum and say, by the way, you can do all this on a smartphone too. And then I came to realize that smartphone filmmaking, smartphone content production is a genre unto itself. The technology is there. There's bodies of work. Hollywood film directors, the guy that does the Marvel films has moved over to make smartphone films. And with the software enhancement you can get, raising the capabilities of it, you can make great work. You can do brand work, indie films, documentaries, all that stuff. So yes, I teach that. And then an offshoot of that, it's not even an offshoot so much, I think it's just sort of the inspiration for smartphone filmmaking, is mobile journalism, where journalists head out the door now, and everybody's journalistic role is sort of cross-pollinated now. So you can lump in radio with print and TV. They all sort of act the same. They head out the door, and the first thing they're doing is whipping out their smartphones, and they're doing like a little stand up on the way to the fire, or on the way to the media event, and feeding that right from their smartphone to social to get, the audience motivated. And they feed tidbits. They show behind the scenes work of how they're working while they cover the story. It's kind of it's an extension of news brand. So they show the characteristics of the news brand. They show how they work behind the scenes, what they stand for. So those two things are related. It's using your smartphone to the fullest, learning how to turn stuff around real quick, creating it and designing it and formatting it specifically for different social media platforms and getting it out there.
Okay, so where do you teach that? Do you teach that in newsrooms, or do you teach it at universities or colleges? Or where?
All of the above. I started out with when COVID hit, so I was teaching it all over the place via Zoom. I've taught it at UCLA, Duke, Hunter College, Clemson, Tufts. I'm not kidding, all over the place. And then here in Toronto at Centennial, Sheridan, Seneca. So I'm going back in the fall more and more to in person, but I teach it both online and in person. Yeah.
Oh, and what kind of students enroll then? Are they journalism students, or?
There's some journalism students. There's a lot of I find PR students. And when I say students, they can come from any age. They can be young adults, they can be adults, they can be, teens, they can be aspiring filmmakers.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of them that are aspiring filmmakers and want to learn want to learn the smartphone filmmaking side. There's a lot of creative entrepreneurs. There's a lot of brands. There's a lot of small business who understand the importance of marketing themselves on social. So they want to know how to do it themselves with a smartphone as opposed to hiring a freelance videographer. So, it comes from across the board, across the gamut. And some of them have experience in filmmaking and photography, some don't. And I tend to start from square one so everybody's on the same page and then proceed from there.
What is the biggest challenge? Because a lot of these students walk into the classroom with a smartphone and they've been using it for a while, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I'll say what isn't the biggest challenge first. Some people might think that the remote learning part is a bit of a pain, which is not, because I teach everything obviously through the smartphone, and I have some good mirroring software. So I teach it virtually the same way, no pun intended, as I would in person. So, I fire up the smartphone and I'm shooting all around my studio and saying, here's how to manage white balance and exposure and frame rate and all this stuff. And I mirror my phone screen right into Zoom. So they're at home seeing exactly what I see on my phone. So when I'm pointing and showing them the interface and all that stuff. So it works that way effectively. There's a slight disadvantage. You can't lean over their shoulder and, help them out if they have
press the buttons for them.
Yeah, press the buttons for them. Yeah. It's a little bit of a challenge sometimes sharing work, in class labs and quick, on the spot exercises. Go shoot this and come back in 20 minutes and show me what you got. So that's a little bit of a difficulty because then they have to, upload it to the Drive cloud or something. But other than that, no complaints.
Oh, okay. But I wasn't thinking so much about the challenges you faced in teaching. I was thinking about the challenge the student faces in learning. Like, what's the hard part? Is it is it framing, or is it technology, or what?
It's I don't know if it's a difficulty. I try to make it approachable. I guess every teacher does that. There's when you are getting the most out of your smartphone camera, which, as I explained a minute ago, it's completely able to create brand film quality content. It's not overly technical, but it's a little bit not complicated, but it's a little bit nuanced. You have to get into frame rates and bit rates and color space a little bit, no more or less than you would have to do with a regular film camera if you were trying to get the best out of a regular film camera. So you have to do it with the smartphone. You have to get involved and understand it somewhat. But it's just like anything else. I try to make it clear that this isn't a magic bullet. It's not a point and shoot and it makes great content for you. You have to work at it and learn it and study it. But the advantage is everybody has one of these cameras and you don't have to go out and be jealous of the next guy's film camera or save up for one. Everybody has one. So, the difficulty is, maybe, if you want to call it that, or the challenge is telling everybody or making it clear to everyone that it's not, it's not a magic bullet. It's not point and shoot and it does the work for you. It's like any other creative endeavor. You have to get involved in it, roll up your sleeves and work at it and get better at it.
Okay, let's break it down a little bit in terms of filmmaking versus mobile journalism, and I will get to the mobile journalism, but let's start at filmmaking because it seems to me, I wonder if it's used currently, and you made reference to that gentleman who was using it, but how extensive that is, and whether there's money in it.
There's money. I don't know if the return on investment might be monetary, but it's certainly, you leverage value out of it, in my opinion, in that, as we know, this is no longer open for debate. Every last brand on earth, big, small, individual, has to market themselves on social. So, you have to do it, and you have to have a well thought out, continual, reliable, interesting and engaging social media campaign. You have to do it. You have to find the time to do it. whether you hire somebody else to do it, whether you get the office intern to do it, whether you do it yourself, you have to do it. And you have to make it good. You have to create good content. So you can, with this thing, you can do it yourself. And there's other apps that help you format the stuff and create preset and templated designs to make the content you're creating specific for all these channels. So you get a payoff that way. It's interesting that you should say that, though, because I'm sort of in this endeavor. I'm putting myself out of business because I used to be one of those guys who was a freelance videographer who would go around and do brand work for clients. I spent 10 years doing that.
Right.
So now I'm trying to convince these brands that they shouldn't hire people like me and they should do it themselves. The funny part is you can go out and get hired to do brand work. And I've done this. And, this thing is just as good as the $5,000 Panasonic DSLR I used to have. But I would pull this out and start shooting. And I could see the client looking at me going, that's all well and good. Where's the real camera? So you could shoot on this. And then sometimes you pull out the big camera just to keep them. Don't worry, I got a real camera here, but they could never tell the difference. But there is money in it, as sure as there's money in freelancers getting hired to create content. There really is.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about social media because it's ubiquitous. It gives unlimited access to so many different things, but it also has been proven to be a bit of a source of fake news. So I'd love your opinion on social media.
I've incorporated that as an integral part of what I teach. It'd be crazy not to. And the thing that I've discovered, I had a few classes and courses that were specific to music and entertainment industry. And it's so vital for them because musicians and artists and entertainment companies and all kinds of creative businesses, they start building an audience, before their product is ready to roll out. And, this is entertainment specific, but you can apply this to just about anything, any growing business. And there's communities out there on social media that have interests in just about everything and anything. So smart entrepreneurs, creative or not, entertainment or not, go out and find these communities and engage with them while they're building and developing their business. And they show the development of their business as a work in progress. They make and create social media about it, post that, and by the time they hit the ground running, they have an audience built in or a community based around them. So it's not a cold start. They've developed an interest around what they do while they're doing it. People love backstage. People love, access. People like behind the scenes and lift up the hood and see how things work. It's not for everybody, but you can always find a specific and interesting community out there.
Yeah, it's Elon Musk and Tesla must use that because they always have leaks out there of the next design, and then I guess they balloon it and see who likes this thing.
You do have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I'm sorry to answer the rest of your question. I mean, fake news is one thing. You always have to consider the source and not believe everything you read or hear. And when you do contribute to social media, it's always important to maintain it, your engagement. Don't just post something and go away. So you have to stay there, sometimes to defend your opinion if you're unfairly portrayed, or sometimes to counter arguments. But as long as people see you're involved, that's part of the deal. But yeah, again, you were going to ask me about mobile journalism and social media. That's
right.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. Again, there's so much of an audience out there that likes to understand a brand, I guess particularly a news brand, by seeing how they tick and understand what goes on behind the scenes and understanding the process. So as I was saying before, so many journalists will be heading to a story and they'll be shooting what they do while they're doing it. There's a station, a TV station in San Diego that gets fantastic ratings. And these anchors, they come on at 6 o'clock, they read the news, they throw to all these packaged stories. And then when they hit a commercial break, they both turn to the side and they have a live Facebook feed going, and they start talking to their live Facebook audience, going like, oh, the cameraman's, didn't tuck his pants in tonight, or how about that last story, or it's hot in here. What are we going to have after the show to eat? All this stuff, and then boom, back to the show. So that's not earth shattering, but it's just an example of the kind of slice of life thing that's the social media people like to get.
Yeah,
The
I can
social
see
media
that
audience.
happening at a football sideline too. Like it
Right.
could be huge.
Exactly. But yeah, exactly. And going back to the journalism, it's some of the older folks, not like us, older than us, can't
Hey,
necessarily
buddy, we're getting
adapt.
up there.
No, don't tell anybody that. Are we on camera still? Some of the older journalists, the veteran journalists who are used to filing, one story a day, if that, and then they're happy. But with social media, you have to file perpetually. So that gets a little getting used to. But again, the tools that you have in here, it's not just an enhanced camera. There's all kinds of these little apps, as I said, that can take your story and apply a template to it, design it, add sort of creative bells and whistles and text and all that stuff. And it makes it really easy to make specific content for Instagram, let's say, when you're out at a breaking story or a product launch, and just go doot, 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 and it's off, posted on Instagram before the event is barely over. So it influences media journalism in that it speeds everything up. Now, with that, yeah, does fact checking go out the window? Maybe a little bit. Does, is it an unimpeachable source for news? Probably not, social media. But I mean, it's like anything. I don't know how unimpeachable newspapers and TV is either. So,
Yeah, good point. And the other thing that can happen, I know it happens on Twitter, for instance, is they see what's trending in any particular geography. Do you have I hate to use the word, but favorite social media, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn? LinkedIn is a business one, for instance.
Yeah, I like LinkedIn. I do. I'm so deep into them that I categorize them according to how good they are and their strengths and all that stuff. I kind of like them all in their way. I'm starting to come around to Twitter. I was really late to the game at Twitter, because how much time do you have, but
Yeah.
I'm sort of enjoying Twitter now more. But one thing I will say is TikTok is not to be ignored. TikTok is an absolute juggernaut. It's crazy. Every time I start a new course, I have to write a new kind of bio about myself, and I write a little bit of background about TikTok, and I look to see what the latest subscriber numbers are, and they've gone up by 250 million every quarter, or 250,000 every quarter. It's insane. There's not a brand, a corporate global brand down to a musician who doesn't pay a lot of attention to what TikTok does and the potential behind TikTok. That algorithm, that platform is just crazy.
Why do you think that is? It's more entertainment based, isn't it?
It is, and it's you wouldn't put all your social media marketing eggs in that basket, in one basket, particularly that basket. But the demo is not 14-year-old goofballs like everybody might think. It's not just doing pranks like everybody might think. It's just another way to look at your brand, whatever your brand is, whether you're a huge brand, whether you're just a sole creative entrepreneur. People will look at you from different perspectives, and having people look at you from the TikTok perspective is definitely valuable. It shows the content you're going to make on there is a little bit lighter, but it's not frivolous. There's serious stuff on there. It's just kind of more short form for sure. It's more punchy. It's irreverent, but not brainless, So there's room for causes on there. There's room for nonprofits to, spout their ideas, and there's room for everybody on there. It just has a certain kind of tone to it, And what happens with TikTok is there's trends on TikTok. So everybody copies these trends and then builds off these trends. And you have to spend some time following it, but it's not just the kids who are doing it. It's all these brands do it, and they don't get old guys like us. They get young guys to say, okay, here's our brand, be careful with it, but go take it into TikTok world and, create a TikTok version of the brand. And there's usually great results and great ROI when they do that. I mean, like Washington Post has a guy, Dave, I forget his last name right now. He's a legend on TikTok. Anybody who teaches mobile journalism always points to this guy. He used to be a newsroom intern, and then he wrote for Comedy Central. And he does nothing but repurpose Washington Post content through the prism of TikTok, like creates TikTok content out of Washington Post content. And it's hilarious. And it's relevant, and it gets you right in the wheelhouse. And he's telling great stories in 30-second snippets, but you're laughing your arse off at, on the same time. And then he's a poster boy for, how to do it right. And I mean, he's not the only one.
And that's what you teach. Steve, great to chat, man.
Absolutely, Pat. My pleasure.
All right. See you again soon.
We'll see you around the corner. Okay, buddy.
Steve Knifton, educator.